Layering kick drums. Is more better? What's the right number of layers and why are we doing this anyway? So in an effort to give you some food for thought, I'm going to tell you how I think about it. If you think stuff like this might be kind of cool, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so we can get a conversation going. I break kick drums into 3 sonic components, or 3 parts of the sound that I think of. But before we get to that, let's talk about the 4 main problems that we encounter. So the first problem is you have a sound that's generally working, but maybe some part of it isn't quite getting you there sonically or vibe-wise. The second problem is you layer too many sounds and then the kick doesn't sort of sound like anything in particular. It starts to sound like a big blobby mess with no character at all. The third problem is sort of coming from the second problem, and that is you layer a lot of sounds and as it gets louder, you think it's better just because it's louder, but then when you put it in the mix, it's not as appealing anymore. The fourth problem actually just comes from 2 and 3, and that is you mess up the phase and the bottom end impact goes away because the samples don't agree phase-wise. Let's look at the 3 components. I break it into weight, so the bottom end. 2, character. What does it sort of sound like? What is the character of the sound that's really coming through? And 3, what I call the ear finder or the chest finder, the part of the sound that helps you find it, especially if it's competing with other elements like bass in the mix. I'm just going to show you how I approach something. This is something I'm working on. It's not finished yet, but I'll give you some thoughts into my process. So this kick drum I really like. I'll take the EQ off. So I really like this kick drum for the bottom end of it. I like it in the context of what I'm working on, but I don't like the click on top of it. So I've EQ'd it so that I'm just getting mainly the middle and the bottom end. I really like the way that feels, but now to me what's missing is character. So it's kind of like an 808 sound, and it mostly is carrying the weight of the bottom end. And so it has character, but it doesn't have much in the mid-range. So I looked for something that complemented it, which was this. So that has some character to it and a little bit of mid-range impact. So here's the first layer. I really like the bottom end of it. That's got some weight. That's really nice. And so here's the sound non-EQ'd. So it has a lot of top end, and that's good, but what I found is in the context of what I'm working on, I didn't like that snappy top end. What I'm working on is a bit darker than that. So I EQ'd it, and the main thing I did was take out this, and I took out some bottom end. So at this point you want to put the 2 sounds together and check the phase. Now I'm going to use the Slate plugin just because it's easy for me to pull up. There's a ton of plugins where you can flip the phase. So what I'm going to do is listen to it, flip the phase, in this instance it's not making a big difference, mostly because I've taken some bottom end out, but you need to check and make sure that you're not phase canceling. So you can tell it's phase canceling if the bottom end actually reduces. So if it reduces a little bit, you don't want that. So check with the phase both ways. Whichever way sounds more full is probably the way you want to go with it. Now I'm going to add a 3rd layer just because I feel like it could use maybe a little bit more impact. And sometimes in the context of a mix, even if it sounds good, you might need just a little bit more edge to the sound. So here's what I've done. I've taken the exact same sample. Now you can use a different sample if you want, but what I've done is I've EQ'd it so that it's just the middle. I know it doesn't sound like much. And then I've compressed it quite a bit without the compression, with the compression. So I'm compressing just that part of the sound that I want to poke through, and in the context of it, I'll pop it in here, so without it. And now with it. So that's helping my ear find it in the context of the mix. Now by itself it might sound like it's a bit much, and you got to do that to taste. So now let me just show you how it's sounding at this point in the context of the whole groove. So those are the 3 components that I consider. Now I don't always use 3 layers. If one single drum has everything, simple really is better. If you have some other ways of approaching this, hit us all in the comments, share it right now, because in terms of approaches and methods, more ideas always is better. Oh yeah, and if you have a question, put that in the comments too. Let's have a discussion about it. See you guys next time.